News out of Jupiter, Florida. Police there have charged New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft with misdemeanor solicitation of prostitution, saying they have videotape of him paying for a sex act inside a massage parlor. Jupiter police told reporters Friday that the 77-year-old hasn't been arrested. A warrant will be issued and his attorneys will be notified. The charge comes amid a widespread crackdown on sex trafficking in the area surrounding Palm Beach County. Here's Deputy Chief Daniel Kerr a short time ago.
We have 25 individuals additional that will be charged. Those filing packets have been forwarded on to the state attorney's office, and my staff will be passing out a list of those individuals as we're speaking here. That would be Mr. Robert Kraft.
Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots?
Yes, sir.
And what is he being charged with?
He's being charged with the same offenses as the others, and that is soliciting another to commit prostitution.
And how many accounts may he face?
Right now we have 2.
So that would be 2 separate incidences or visits to the Orchids of Asia Day Spa, or one visit with multiple charges from that one visit?
2 different visits.
The video that we obtained, it shows the act that took place. On every gentleman that you have a list of, the act that took place is recorded on that video.
Is Mr. Kraft alleged to have shown up by himself? Was he driven there? Was he with other people when he entered the premises? Can you tell us any more detail whatsoever about Mr. Kraft?
The times that Mr. Kraft was there, he was driven. And that name and information is, like I stated, it will be contained in the probable cause affidavit.
A driver who waited?
The question was, does the video contain Mr. Kraft inside receiving the alleged acts? The answer to that is yes.
In a statement, a spokesperson for Kraft said they categorically deny that Mr. Kraft engaged in any illegal activity. Because it is a judicial matter, we will not be commenting further. NFL insiders Chris Mortensen and Adam Schefter joining us now.
Well, Susie, you heard that Robert Kraft is being charged here for solicitation, but he's not been convicted, and he's categorically denying those charges as you saw. So there obviously is the legal end that's going to unfold here, and then there'll be the end from the NFL perspective. And the NFL will have to determine whether or not this is a violation of its personal conduct policy. Now, keep in mind here that the personal conduct policy calls for higher standards and harsher punishment for NFL owners. We've already seen back in 2014, Jim Irsay being arrested on drug charges and being suspended for 6 games and being fined $500,000 at that point in time. And so while the situation is unfolding down in Florida, and this is said to be a wide-ranging investigation that involves women who have been trapped in human trafficking for a long time. We're talking about a very serious situation here. The legal situation will unfold, and the NFL will have yet another investigation on its hands in which it's going to have to hold one of the most powerful people, not just in football, but in all of sports, to the highest standards possible. And so this is the first we're hearing of it today, but this is a story that's going to have ripple effects and unfold for days and weeks to come.
Well, we as you started off in leading into the story, I mean, there has been a denial from Robert Kraft, his spokesman and legal counsel, that he engaged in any illegal activity. And until this thing is adjudicated, I don't think the league jumps into this. I don't think this gets fast-tracked right away. And you could say, well, as the personal conduct policy says, owners and executives and coaches and what have you are held to a higher standard, and the higher standard being of more than players. I can sit back and say, I don't know if I've ever heard of a player being disciplined for solicitation of prostitution unless there was assault involved. And then you also have the kind of a different layer to this case because it's all sex trafficking, but Robert Kraft's not identified as being involved in that, but for the solicitation part. So to me, there's a lot of layers. We still have to kind of see how it goes. I don't think this is going to get fast-tracked in terms of his discipline. I do think, as anybody would would admit that legacy and reputation, those things get tarnished in the court of public opinion. And this is an owner, we know it was impact on the league has been and on the team and on the New England area. This is an owner who I believe probably is the leading candidate to go and to be considered for the Pro Football Hall of Fame next year and next year's class. And under those guidelines, what happens away from the game is not to be considered in his candidacy. And I think that's just kind of like a sidebar to it. But to me, this is more about his legacy and reputation that I think is probably going to bother him more than anything. And that's even considering the fact that he denies that he was involved in this.
Right, legacy and reputation. So again, a Kraft spokesperson categorically denies the charges, but the Jupiter Police Department says there's videotape evidence. So Adam, like from your standpoint right now, how do we present this?
Well, it's a difficult situation, Susie, and obviously, like I said, we're going to be hearing about it. My understanding is, this is not just a case about prostitution. This is a case about human sex trafficking and really significant issues that face our society. And down in South Florida, I think the people in that area, I'm told, are very nervous and tight-lipped right now. Obviously, it's not just Robert Kraft. There are other people involved. We're waiting to hear more about the names involved at this particular point in time. Look, it's almost unprecedented because there have not been many cases where we've seen somebody of Robert Kraft's stature ensnared in a situation like this, though he categorically denies that he took part in this. So it's difficult for everybody to process exactly what to make of this right now. But again, it's not a headline that the Patriots, Robert Kraft, the NFL wants at this point in time, but everybody's going to have to deal with it.
Okay, more Adam. We know you'll bring us any unfolding news as we continue to cover this story. Jeff Darlington, our NFL insider, is with us as well. And they've referenced South Florida. That's where you live and work. This is obviously unfamiliar subject matter.
This is uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's
to talk
uncomfortable.
about for sure.
We're a sports show. What's your understanding of the situation?
Well, I think that, again, this is an uncomfortable conversation to have about one of the most respected owners in the NFL. And I think that the one important thing to point out here as this news continues to unfold is that from my understanding, we've heard it from law enforcement, but also based on conversations that I've had, there is a clear delineation right now between when we see human trafficking investigation and what Robert Kraft is being charged with. And these two things need to be separated absolutely as clear as day. Robert Kraft is not being charged with anything to do with human trafficking at this point. It is solicitation of prostitution. It is a misdemeanor. Jim Irsay was suspended, as Adam Schefter alluded to, for 6 games and fined $500,000 for a misdemeanor, which was a count of driving while intoxicated following an arrest at a traffic stop. So right now we are talking about misdemeanors as it pertains to Robert Kraft. Again, an incredibly uncomfortable conversation, but one where we need to make clear delineations about the act and the crime being committed.
Right, and we can make the clear delineations, but then, as Adam and Mort referenced too, there's a different standard when we're talking about the NFL.
No question. And Robert Kraft, and Robert Kraft, again, is one of the most respected, if not the most respected owner in the NFL. So this is going to be a conversation that consumes not only ESPN, but outside news sources, and this one extends well beyond sports, and it will be a conversation that we continue to have as this situation unfolds.
What kind of reaction have you gotten since this news broke this afternoon?
This is where it gets uncomfortable, but there's a lot of, this is going to be late night comedy too. Like, there's going to be jokes that are made about this, of course. And again, there's a delineation that needs to be made here between the comedy that's occurring and the crime that's occurring. And these are two completely different conversations. But if you log on to social media right now, your timeline is going to be flooded with jokes. But we're also having to deal with what is obviously a very serious situation at the same time. So again, I think that that's what makes this especially uncomfortable. But that right now is the reaction of the outside world.
Just a short time ago, I spoke with someone who spent a long time in the Patriots organization and pointed out, this is an organization where players are trained to deal with any type of adversity in
And
a
they are right
certain
now.
way to keep something like this, which there are so many things about this that's unfolding that we don't know, to keep it contained.
They are all locked down right now. They are not comfortable talking about this. I can tell you that from firsthand knowledge. They are not comfortable talking about this. They don't want to talk about this. And quite frankly, they're uncomfortable even addressing it. Because, again, we're talking about someone that all these players admire and adore in Robert Kraft. So this is uncomfortable subject matter across the board.
Breaking news this afternoon, Patriots owner Robert Kraft charged with solicitation of prostitution